No, we appreciate everyone coming, especially nice and early. It's always interesting coming to talk this early. Have to have a few extra shots of coffee. But no, it's awesome. We're excited. I think we've had an interesting story so far.
Definitely very interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess who are we? We're Hashlock. So Hashlock is Australia's leading blockchain cybersecurity firm. And what we do is smart contract auditing. Now, does anyone in the room, just to get a sort of grasp on where we're at in blockchain cybersecurity knowledge, who knows what blockchain is? Just to raise your hands. Okay, awesome. And now maybe who knows what smart contracts are? Oh, perfect. Awesome. So we do. Yeah, you want to talk about what smart contract auditing is?
Well, yeah, it's very rare that people would know what a smart contract is if they're not in the industry. But essentially, what we do, so a blockchain cybersecurity firm, primarily we do independent auditing. We'll go into it a little bit more, but smart contracts are permanent code on the blockchain. They're essentially permanent, you can't change them. They handle funds, usually large amounts of funds like a vending machine. It takes out the middleman usually, so the most common example is like lending. So you can borrow Ethereum or cryptocurrency without a middleman, without any processes. It's just a piece of code that says if you can do it or not, what the rules are. And once you deploy that code, you can't change it essentially. So we independently verify if it's ready to be deployed and if it's secure to use. It's quite dangerous, but it's also extremely can be extremely secure, but it's also a massive area of leading edge technology that's extremely efficient for business use cases.
And unlike, I guess, a traditional website where if you make a mistake, you can go and fix it. If you spell someone's name wrong, just go in and fix it the next day. If this is a smart contract that's permanent on blockchain, you can't change it. And that's why you get people like Hashlock to ensure that there's no mistakes or vulnerabilities in those contracts, because once they're hit mainnet, they're permanent. So a bit about us. So I'm Jock.
I'm Fletcher, of course.
And we have some of our team leads here too. That's Chris, our lead security researcher. And we also have Christopher, sorry, who's our executive BDM. It was a bit confusing at first. For a while we were calling him K-Risk, just so that there was that distinction between the Chris and Chris.
And we're pretty involved. It's good just to sort of get where we're at now and sort of go into a bit more. But essentially, we do a bunch of stuff with different organisations like Blockchain Australia, FinTech Australia, do a bunch of stuff with New South Wales Government, both on a sort of collaboration basis, but also commercial contract basis that we'll talk about. And those guys are really cool. Shout out to them. Our investors, SBM, who come into the story a little bit early on and then helped us since. But yes, essentially that's a snapshot of where we are now. And I think the next slide, a bunch of our clients. So pretty much everyone from funded startups, so like most of those are funded Web3 blockchain startups. Everything to corporate clients, like I said, government, universities.
Entire chains on it too.
Yeah, blockchains themselves. This one's, for example, partnered with MasterCard, a really cool company. A bunch of cool clients. So that's pretty much where we're at. So where do we start? This is where it gets interesting. So you know where we are, sort of, and you sort of have an idea of Hashlock. But I think the story's kind of cool. It was interesting putting these slides together, sort of reminiscing on the story.
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one. There's definitely a lot that we had to learn very quickly, and there were a lot of mistakes on the way. But I guess it all started because we were best friends and we were both interested in blockchain tech.
Yeah, so that was probably more than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I haven't aged, hopefully. No, a little bit. Jock age is like milk. There's a funny photo he's photoshopped us, so I'm actually told when he has my hair. But no, that was us about 2 years ago, and we're just taking photos just because of our website stuff. And essentially, we were two guys. I think we should probably introduce where we were at on this slide.
Yeah.
So myself, I was going to UTS for business and law. It was right in COVID time, we started COVID, so we went all online. Essentially, I ended up working full-time for a marketing agency. It was an SPM, so tell a story, but essentially they're now our investors. And I was doing a bunch of marketing. I was super interested in business, like I was studying it, working in marketing, and that's where I was, in Jock.
Yeah, so I was working at a quantity surveying firm, and I was doing some security consulting on the side, and I was studying computer science. It was really cool. Obviously, I've always been interested in tech. Built pretty much all my computers and all the computers and everyone of my friends' computers. But just there was no decent offering in the Web3 space, at least from the sort of tertiary level at that stage. A lot of the sort of accreditations that were floating around weren't really worth the paper they were written on. And a lot of it was just starting from, getting really in the deep end and figuring out, well, I'm really interested in blockchain tech. How can I promote more in terms of adoption? And it seemed that a lot of people were in one of two camps. They were already in Camp A, where they're really keen on blockchain and digital assets, or they're in Camp B, where they've heard of it, but unfortunately they've also heard of all the scams and hacks that happens in that industry, and are sort of scared off it.
So in summary, based on where we were both working full time. We both sort of did a bit of study, and then wasn't really for us at the time. I think when Hashlock first started, I was still doing uni, but I dropped out after, very shortly after. And this goes into the idea. So essentially, so Jock's very technical, and a very skilled person in many different ways. I was more a one-trick pony. I really understood marketing. Just because I was very early on, 2.5 years of experience in the firm, and studying business for about a year and a half before I dropped out. So that was my thing, marketing and sales. Jock was amazing at a lot of things, tech, creative, and a lot of different areas. And so it was a really good match. So essentially, we knew that A, wanted to start a business. I'm not sure exactly what the reason was we knew we wanted to start a business. I think we just both had seen enough that we were around.
Yeah, and you said to me like, oh yeah, I want to start a business, and it's like, cool, what sector do you want to be in? And because at that stage, I think too, I'd introduced you to cryptocurrencies and related technologies for a while, and we both personally invested. But it was a bit of finding that mission of, if we're going to start a business in this space, how do we know that it's going to be viable for the future? What's that course of action there? That is adoption, and how do we create mass adoption? We need to ensure that people think that they're interacting with a system that's safe and secure. And so we're looking into how are Web3 technologies secured and how are they validated to be safe? And that's where the sort of smart contract piece comes into.
So essentially, we knew we wanted to do a business. We knew we wanted to do blockchain because it was massive at the time. It's bigger now, but it was really hot in the news. Jock had introduced me to it for a long time, so we're very interested in it. And so yeah, we knew we wanted to do a business. We knew we wanted to do a blockchain business. We sort of, especially with Jock, had some background in security, and we sort of fiddled around online with security competitions in Web3 and things like that, had a network in it. We didn't know exactly yet what it was, but first we knew we needed a brand. So, Jock, you want to be able to explain the progression?
Yeah, well, that was like sketched on an iPad at my old job, so hopefully I don't get in trouble for walking off work to work on something else. But we started just sort of messing around with different assets and stuff. This is all like really old and dated, but it wasn't until that sort of top right inside that we thought some brand creation. We wanted to almost have the perspective on our brand that we were skipping certain stepping stones. We wanted to almost look like we were more established, and a lot of the ideas that coming out as just the two founders as a startup, a lot of people weren't giving us any work. So we needed to have a brand that looked professional and looked like we were pretty established from the get-go.
So the thing with our brand is, you might think, oh, it's very simple. It's one of the few brands where the name Hashlock is the logo. So it's just literally, like, after all the thinking in a few days, we decided a hash with a lock in it. But it's good because people really remember it. Like, people just see that without the name and they say, oh, Hashlock, because it's a hash with a lock. So it was actually pretty good. I think it's sometimes a good idea to do that. Like, Apple is Windows is a window. Because you see it and you're like, oh yeah, that's Apple. Well, that's, and I don't want to compare, our brand is not Apple, obviously. I'm just trying to say like, that's sort of why we came very simple, but it's worked a lot for us in terms of just brand recognition early.
So we were early, the early day struggles. It was difficult, getting, I guess, the first client. My perspective on it was the first client that we got was luck. The second was a business. So it was pretty difficult at the start, but I guess if you want to,
So remember, we knew the general company we wanted to do, we weren't quite sure it wasn't validated yet. So as soon as we had the brand kind of basic website, I think in the future there's a photo of our first website, we started telling people. So I was still working at the marketing firm, and we both just started telling people in our networks, hey, we're doing this business, this is what it's sort of going to be about. And just sort of putting ourselves out there, a bit of risk, a bit of not being afraid to say it. And luckily, one of our networks says, oh, do you guys do smart contract audits? And we're like, yeah, we know. We sort of hadn't done one commercially yet. We'd obviously looked into it and understood it and been in security a little bit, and that was one of our ideas. So we took on the job. So that the first one was referral, just talking in just by chance, had a good contact. But then from there, so that's our first client. I think there's a slide on that. There. So that's me holding up the phone notification of our first ever invoice paid hitting the bank account. So it's $6,500, which at the time we felt so successful. We literally took our whole family and went out for a full dinner.
almost blew it straight away.
But the thing, it was sort of, I actually sort of think that was a good point, because once you have your first one, everyone's sort of like, oh, Jock and Fletcher, they're not started, they're creating a logo, blah, blah, blah. Everyone does it.
Yeah.
Once you actually get a client,
Exactly. It gave us the validation. And prior to that, Fletcher and I were discussing alright, so we were doing the calculations on how many cans of baked beans we can live off a week if we both quit our jobs and just go full time for Hashlock. And we were talking like, I could probably live off, 2 to 3 a week. If you can sort of get, one client, if you get $500 in a week, then we're laughing. And that's, our first website there too, which was just a templated workflow site that we made a bit green. So it was all very early days. But getting that first client really gave us the validation that we needed, that, hey, this is a good idea.
One thing I really want to, and it sort of leads into this slide, which is a really interesting story, but what we did was we made that first website extremely quickly, like a week or 2 max. And our thing was just get moving, move fast, fail fast, go. Some startups, and this is one thing I want to quickly touch on, they build startups and they're like, and the mindset is, okay, we're going to build it for 1.5 to 2 years, we'll be profitable in 3 years. Like, we were a startup, but we just don't, I believe a lot of the time you shouldn't necessarily call yourself a startup, you should build a business straight away. So straight away, like, no, we're going to build the best website we can. So after that, we made another website. And just really took ourselves seriously from the get-go. And when we're talking to clients, it's not like, hey, we're a new firm. We never ever talk like a startup. When we talk to clients, it's, hey, this is what we do, we're great at what we do, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Then, just quickly, before we got to this stage, Jock actually, because of his work situation, before I did, started putting in a bunch of time and hours. And effectively, Jock, I don't know how you want to explain it, you were going into a fair amount of credit card debt just to work on the business.
Yeah, I wasn't in the position where I could work remotely. So I essentially quit my job early before we had that first client. And that just caused me to go into a bit of credit card debt to manage to keep the lights on at home, even though I knew that this idea was, a good idea. Like with Fletcher, we had the ability to sort of work remotely, so we could quickly smash out work at the end of the day and we'd be investing all of our weekend hours into building Hashlock. But luckily that first client did give us the validation that, hey, we are on something here. And that's when I guess you took it to your boss at the time, and you went to, I guess, quit as well, and that leads into this.
So this is an interesting story. So I was working in a marketing firm. We had our first client, and really wanted to commit to it. We're going to do this, we're going to do this. Like once you get your first client, you really it's a good feeling. So we went. So I said, I told everyone, I'm going to go to my boss and telling me about this business. But, I've got to do that. And I thought that I was going to have to go get a job at McDonald's or somewhere and support it. I thought he was going to fire me. I literally thought I would get fired. So I was really nervous, got on a call with him. I was like studying on this, and I showed him the website. Like, it's very, very interesting. Let's meet, let's talk about it next week. And I remember I was going to the movies that night, and just before he jumped on a video call with me, and he's like, Fletcher, I've thought about it, I've talked about it internally. He's only had a month talking to me. We want to talk about investment. And so that started a massive process. I called Jock, and in the first call, he's like, okay, so we're going to think about 100-ish K for 30, so this is where the conversation started, 30% plus some stuff, et cetera, and we'll talk about it. And I called Jock. So excited, like at the time, the most we've seen is 6,500. At that time, 100 grand was uncomprehensible.
Yeah, well, when we were both, Fletcher went into that meeting expecting to get fired, and the Taylor were offered investment, and because of the financial situation that we were both in personally at the time, having that investment was security that we could keep working at Hashlock. So it was pretty cool offer. There's a lot that happened, so that process, we didn't understand how long that takes, and that's something that I think anyone looking to create a business or start a startup needs to sort of take into mind, because that process took, I think in total, maybe 6 to 9 months. So when you're offered the cash until it hits your account, you can't really do much with it, which was interesting, but that's sort of another process, I guess.
And what happened was, just long story short, we got outclassed. So they were far better negotiators than we were at the time, probably, and definitely are still now. They started with 100 for 30, and they let us stretch it out months, telephone, and they said it's all good. They were very good about it, but we definitely got outclassed, and they ended up halving it. They went down 20% for only 50 grand, because we were so invested and we were scraped to get it done. So we ended up only getting, we learned a good lesson. It was good to learn on the job. Definitely we got 50 grand for 20% plus some extras. Some good extra like credit for services, different things, and no interest loans, but so all up, I think we're probably still about 100 something, with the cash was like 50 grand, 20%. Like good money, but definitely like we got out class at the time.
So I would definitely, if people do offer you investment at an early stage of your business or early stage of a startup, I would seek more advice than we did at the time.
Yeah,
that's really what I recommend. And this is the Oscrypto.com 2022. So we actually went here on borrowed money from the bank. That's a photo of us at the Versace Hotel, but we didn't stay there. We just walked into the lobby and asked the person to take a photo of us. So we did have their seafood buffet thing, but it was on the Sunday where it was half off because it was probably half off. But the process of networking was extremely important to us. I think, at the end of the day, we were selling a security service, and a lot of people that were in the industry were selling this from a perspective of, a Discord admin that could probably just disappear if they wanted to. And it was a very, like the technology itself, it was a very sort of decentralized process. A lot of people were sending, $30K USDC over Telegram to auditing firms, and hopefully they'd get a smart contract order report back at the end of that. So we tried to bring a more human element to the sales process of that, and I think it worked out good.
So one thing we did, from the first client to going to this event, not knowing anything, we literally got a loan to do the event, because the investment wasn't in yet. We would just walk up to people, not knowing anyone. We're Hashlock, we're good at what we do, love what we do, and put ourselves out there. And, so many startups would never do that. We got our Hashlock shirts, we drilled how to talk to people, and we used to talk to hundreds of people throughout the weekend, and we do meetings upon meetings with people after, and just networking is such a big thing, and we did that so hard early on that people really just, after a few months of doing that, different events, people just started to know Hashlock, just from professional networking. Couldn't be understated.
And some of the events and stuff that we went to. Trust Web 3 was a cool initiative that we started as well, because we wanted a way to sort of give back to the community, businesses that weren't really sure about where to start in the Web3 space. It was sort of an open newsletter directory of companies that we work with from the aspect of a third party that we sort of validated as a third party that they were safe and secure, because unfortunately there was a lot of scam companies in the industry, and we just wanted to point people in the right direction as they were dipping their toes into the space. That's a bit of what that start looks like. A bit about where are we now. Important thing to touch on too. So, we offered this service as smart contracts. Well, how do we sort of have the ability to facilitate that process for just us two? It's interesting because in the security space in blockchain and Web3, there's things called bug bounties. And bug bounties are places that you go for a sort of open source relationship where you'll publish your smart contracts there, and they will be scrutinized and looked through by anyone who wants to look at it, essentially. And everyone has the ability to find vulnerabilities and issues within your contracts there. And essentially, if they find certain vulnerabilities and issues, they will get a payout if they're validated as a true vulnerability. So we saw that as the best approach to take. And we reached out to these security researchers that use these bug bounties and were charting the tops of these bug bounties and said, we like the idea of the sort of dog-eat-dog bug bounty, but we prefer if there was a more collaborative environment, because essentially, because it's a competition-like system, everyone's sort of working against each other. What if we bring you guys in to work together as a team collaboratively? And that's how we facilitated that at the start.
So where we are now, and this is pretty much one of the primary things that got us there. Remember, acting like a business straight away. So having a CRM, like a system that manages all your leads, all your clients, all your contacts, when your deal started, opportunities and conversion rates. This is a snapshot from our CRM system. The blues, actually I'm not sure, keeps it changes sometimes, but I'm pretty sure the blues lead started, proposal sent, and each number is like a positional movement of like a sales meeting happening essentially per month. And so yeah, straight away it was all about numbers, it was all about marketing, paid marketing, networking, all that sort of stuff. We took marketing very seriously very early on. And from the first client, we never had a month where we didn't make revenue, and pretty much the revenue grew every month from the first one, which is pretty rare. So we took it seriously straight away. We're never like, oh, we're going to start, we're going to build for it. No. As soon as we had the website started, we're selling.
Because a lot of the time we were sort of just pushing a proof of concept, and then if that worked or if it didn't work, we then like extrapolate and move on with it, and then we come back and iterate upon it. A lot of people get stuck in just the building process, and then unfortunately if they get to a point where they're too worried about building and then they push the product and it doesn't get the right reception or it doesn't work as intended, then you spend all that time building and not really validating if it's fit for market.
It's also important to note that we just got out of the crypto bear market, so the price has always been red and negative for like the last year and a half. Now we're starting to see really green prices. But all that growth and all the building Hashlock was while the crypto market was quote unquote in a bear market. We were profitable and growing every single month.
Everyone was saying, it was a bad time to start a business in the crypto native market, but everyone was saying that crypto was dead at that stage. But I believe it's, we always know we're good. And so, it's a bit of, that's, so we went from going to the Australian Crypto Convention on borrowed money in 2022 to being their leading security sponsor the next year. And we're this leading security sponsor this year as well. We're heading to Dubai next week, and we're sponsoring an event over there. And we also on Blockchain Australia's, what's the award?
Rising Star, you got that one.
Oh, Rising Star, there you go. Blockchain Australia's Rising Star, so that was cool. Brand awareness.
So yeah, just more marketing. We always took marketing very seriously and measured it. But this is the more harder to measure stuff. Heaps of social stuff, heaps of stuff on Google, heaps of competitions, heaps of lead gen, like paid ads and things like that. If you just search Hashlock, like even within 2 years, that digital footprint, very big, because we always focused and always spent a lot on it.
I mean, this is just us doing this again, what our phones do, we're just diligent about whatever we did to ensure that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so that was the second Oz CryptoCon that we sponsored. Doing talks, that was our stand there. Yeah, it was crazy from going to not knowing anyone 1 year to having one of the biggest stands and being the primary security sponsor of that whole event within a year. Yeah, pretty interesting. And then just more digital stuff. So these are older numbers, but as you can see, lots of website traffic we invest in, heaps of like PR sort of blogs and stuff like that. That people search for best smart contract auditing firms, we always should show up. Digital footprint stuff. We always took marketing very seriously, and I think marketing is a very make or break thing. It's pretty much any business that you sell it, you're running services. So, and then so now the strategic. And I know that time is limited, but huge strategic advantage now. So we're the first fully independent firm in Australia that does what we do. Meaning we don't do dev, we don't have independent auditors what we do. There's a few others, but a lot of them do development and other things. Widespread recognition and collaboration with all the industry bodies, etc. But then from there, most of our work now comes globally from a reputation of being in Australia. Australia's, we would say Australia's best firm at what we do. So most of our work comes from globally now.
Yeah, new experiences. So part of this process as well, I would consider Hashlock maybe was my first baby until I had my first baby. And that was sort of, if I didn't know what I do in my free time prior, I'm not sure what I do with it now. But yeah, that's
How much do they look alike? Jock and the baby, it's like spitting image.
That's good for Fletcher and baby too. Yeah. And we partnered with all the leading developing firms in the Web3 space too, so that was cool. A lot of it was, networking was extremely important.
Yeah. Some of these early on, like when we first had our first 1 or 2 clients, we would set up meetings with the biggest Web3 blockchain development firms, and I think it was the level of just like not much to lose. We just weren't really that scared, but we were meeting with like top dog development firms. We just primarily just built friendships with them, and then they built something and they needed audited. So we did that early on. It was huge for us, huge.
Yeah, and because we don't do any development whatsoever, we had a business model that had a very synergistic relationship with the development firms, because essentially all the work that they did needed to be audited by a third party. So we were in no way competitive to these guys. So they actually liked that they had this vertical effect. They could do all this work and essentially just give it to us.
This is a cool one. So at some point late last year, we acquired so in the USA, a lot of you guys know this, it's all about raising the next funding round, and that's how startups work. There was a really cool startup that was funded by Mark Cuban and Gary Vee. It's like a huge startup. They raised across a few rounds over $20 million US, I think. But they didn't get enough revenue to get the next funding round. So a lot of the money went back to investors, and they wanted to sell to have sort of a success story and PR, but they didn't fail, they acquired it. So we got these guys really good price and some tool that we can essentially use for security with development firms. So it's sort of a SaaS tool to go on our auditing services and products. This is a tool that we acquired, but it's a new moment.
Yeah, because we were discussing with a lot of banks at the stage, and they were interested in blockchain tech, but didn't like the whole idea of the open source, open ledger nature of it. So this gives the ability for IP risk and security to have a spin-up closed chain blockchain environment, and no one can police it, which is almost the antithesis of blockchain, but obviously as people are sort of moving over, they don't want to just go open source public straight away. And as well, we did a bit of a brand update, so this isn't live yet, but we'll show you guys. So, a little update.
In progress.
How are we on for time? I think we're probably a bit over.
Yeah.
Should we just call it there?
If you have more to say, that's fine, but otherwise
Probably
we'll go to questions.
skim a few more things, I think. Well, I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, so that will be rolling out slowly. It's a very slight update, a little bit more professional and vibrant, etc. So that's coming out. And then what's the next go? Okay, we'll probably stop there. Yeah, we've got some more stuff going, but yeah.
Okay.
We'll say that one in the pipeline for you guys.
Yeah.
Alright, thank you. Looking forward to that.
Oh yeah, sure.
go.
Thank you guys, that was amazing. I mean, I know I met with you only a few days ago, but I'm so shocked at how successful your story has been in such a short amount of time. And I think that that's because we work so much with startups side to end, and like there's obviously varying degrees of when people start and when they take breaks and when they raise or when they have their first customer, and you guys have gone from point to point so quickly. And it's amazing. So thank you so much for coming to share your story. I'm sure there's going to be people here who have their own startups who just want to ask you some questions about that journey a little bit more specifically. Before we jump into some of these questions, I wanted to ask this silly question, which is, could you just give us a very short description of what blockchain is and smart contracts?
I can take it. Yeah, so a blockchain is an immutable public ledger most of the time, and a lot of these things are most companies variants and private ledger, but it's a ledger stored around the world across a bunch of different computers that agree on a state of the machine of who owns what's past transactions are, etc., etc. And it allows us to have sort of a world computer, a shared world network that's immutable, trustless, verified via cryptography, via a few methods, either proof of work or proof of stake, but essentially a shared network that's mostly immutable that allows us to agree on this person on this computer owns this person's done this, etc., etc. And stores smart contracts and programs and things like that. That's what a blockchain is. Smart contracts are sort of like code that act like vending machines on the blockchain that allow you to interact with the blockchain in certain ways, in programmable ways. So,
I like that analogy. A smart contract is a digital vending machine. And that's why as well, a smart contract audit is very important, because when you press E3 on your vending machine and the packet of chips drops, in the blockchain world, sort of packet of chips worth 3 or 50 might be $10 million worth of assets, but you can go from A to B. So you need to make sure that it works.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Because the other day when I met with Jock and Fletcher, I was like, I really don't understand the very bare minimum of this description, and so I found that analogy really helpful. So I hope that helps some of you in the room who might be like, what is that? So we'll jump into some of the questions we had. I won't do all of these ones because I know that there's probably some people in the crowd who want to ask their own questions. But one of the first questions was, what are the limitations of blockchain technology and how might they be overcome in the future?
That's a good question. I might take like part of that. Certain limitations can be speed. Speed is a big one. The limitations are almost part of the secure nature of blockchains. So every different blockchain that is spun up, there's all different change. There's Bitcoin, Ethereum, all these different blockchains that relate to different tokens and assets. Every different chain seems to inherit different positives, but also negatives. So a lot of people say XRP is extremely fast and quick, but the fact that Ethereum might be a bit slower is almost an inherent security nature of the chain. So a lot of people talk about a trilemma in the blockchain space, and it's essentially, when you inherit different aspects, you also inherit different negatives as well.
yeah, so in summary, it's usually either scalability, how many transactions can you do at a time, speed, centralization, like how controlled is it, and then also security, how secure actually is it? Because generally you want a blockchain to be pretty secure, but if you're trying to make it super scalable, super decentralized, you're probably letting go of security somewhere. So they call it a trilemma. You're always probably focusing on two and forgetting one. Most of the time.
That's great. Thank you. The next question is, how have you as founders dealt with a very dynamic regulatory environment when building a startup and then pitching it to customers?
So the good thing for us is financially, obviously it's very highly regulated, especially in Australia, but in terms of infrastructure, regulators haven't really understood the infrastructure yet. So it's a perfect growth environment, super high growth industry, but the actual technology, the code behind it, there's no standards, there's no requirements. Essentially firms like us set the requirements for security. So at this point now where we are, a lot of security firms or teams look at our procedures and processes for what are the best practices on how to test a smart contract, what's the best practices on security, what's the most up-to-date information. And the community requirement is is that you get audits from the best firms. So that's what the community expects, the industry expects. Even like banks and things like that, if they're using smart contracts, they just ask who has audited your code. Which is going to be Hashlock plus another firm plus another firm. That's essentially it. So we got to grow in an environment where we set the standard, we lead the edge in quality. And now if it gets regulated now, that's good because a lot of it will be consulting with us, and we've already done a lot of the growth work.
Yeah. If anything, we push for regulation in the smart contract space because currently it's pretty much solely based on reputation. And there's a cool site called rent.news, IAT.NWS, and it lists all the big hacks and big, I guess, blow-ups in the blockchain space where people have lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And next to the project name, it has whether or not they were audited. Pretty sure the first 10 or so weren't audited at all, and that's why I guess there was a vulnerability present. But then it'll actually have if they were audited by which firm. So, if you want to start up a smart contract auditing firm, you can do that tomorrow. But essentially, yeah, it's based on reputation. So we've never had a business resulting in lots of funds, which isn't something that every firm can say. And we believe that's because they were already using those top echelons with security researchers in the bug bounty space from the start. We weren't trying to convert people from traditional Web 2 cybersecurity space into Web 3. We just already got people that were good at finding vulnerabilities and bugs and just sort of brought them in and collaborated with it.
Great. I do have a bunch more questions here, but I'm just going to throw to you guys because we've got 10 minutes left. Does anyone in the crowd have a question that they'd like to ask? Yeah.
Congrats on the success of the question starter. I'm super interested in your acquisition because you recently touched to Auditing. But so is there any chance where you said we were great with investors and they is there potential for them to follow on for your success?
So the investors in the company that we acquired. So the money went back to those investors, of course, and so we got it for a very, very good price. We acquired the IP and the tech and everything except for any liabilities and employees and things like that. The contacts are there though. So now we have the contacts. We have the network. The door is open there. The question for us is, do we do another funding round because we are profitable already and growing? Do we actually do a funding round again? It's a question. It's honestly an ongoing decision for us if we ever do raise funds again.
Yeah. We're in a position where Fletcher and I are majority shareholders, so we both together have 80% of Hashlock. We have that one investment fund that has the 20%. Because they did come in early, people know what we're doing and give away probably a fair chunk. But at that stage, we're like, that's the most money I've ever seen in my life. So,
I don't think you should go that way. I can't see it really drastically, but you have money for that. Next time, I'm looking for
exactly. And I look to that investment too. People are strategic because that person has built that firm, people in that firm have built multiple businesses from the start to where they are today. And we can at any point bring them up and ask all these questions. And if there is a really hard question, we talk to them and it almost stops us from making too many mistakes like that moving forward.
Yeah, I just want to say, especially the recording, really shout out to SPM. Awesome investors, and they help all the time. Great mentors of us.
Yeah, it was a lesson in the investment from the start.
They got a good deal. They got a good deal.
Yes, they got a good deal, but only we know that now.
Yeah.
I think on that point as well, though, something that we often tell founders is that when they are looking for investment, it should be about so much more than money. And so when you guys talk about this investment from this particular company, the fact that you talk so highly about their mentorship and the fact that they offer you so much advice and guidance, the money is always not the part that matters there. And so that's really great that you've been able to find someone who can happily on in this really rapid journey that you've gone on.
Absolutely, yeah, because the money goes very quickly, but then now, that's who we're partnered with, that's who we meet with regularly, that's who gives advice. It's honestly, I wouldn't change it now for sure, no way. And a lot of investors, you've got to be careful too, they can become pretty down, controlling, and lot of bad stories from investors that give you way more money, but it just turns into a horror story.
Kieran wants to have a yeah.
So I wanted to know how many employees or how many there are now in your company, and also do you guys still put in those long hours?
Good question. So now, we have a mixed model. So 5 full-timers now, but then including us, but then over 25 independent researchers that probably earn more than a full-time employee.
Outsourced.
No, so they're internal researchers, but the thing is, they're security researchers on different chains and things like that. So they work in different foundations, different universities as well. But on their LinkedIn and stuff, a lot of them is from Hashlock. So they're not teams, they're individual, on the top of the bug bounty list, best researchers in the world. That are very expensive to hire, but if you want them on a full-time salary, you're $500K a year. So they work for us. We still earn a significant amount on other things. Yeah.
What about your hours?
The hours, yeah. The hours are still very long, I would say, but I think with more people that come on board as we grow, we're just delegating more and more of our jobs, because from the start we just sort of did everything. The website was us, marketing was us, everything that built Hashlock in the first 12 months wasn't going to touch by us. So we just had to wear many hats to get the job done, and that's why I would say we knew that this was probably not the best thing that we could do, with the website, for example. That wasn't the best website that we could build, but it was a website, then we could start utilizing that, and we could just come back later with more skill sets, with more knowledge and stuff. And so that was sort of the process that we took. Get that proof of concept out there as quickly as you can, and then come back and be the professionals.
And you still enjoy what you do, obviously.
Love it.
Yeah.
Probably more.
It's not work when you can't do it.
That's it. When we're driving back from Sydney at 3 or 4 a.m. because we've gone down for a meeting or something, and it's good to end. But I think that's fine. I really enjoy the social aspect of it. I like going to places and meeting and talking to people, and it was an interesting parallel from being in this sort of decentralized technology sector. But I think that's what made it sort of more so appealing, that there is someone that is sort of a centralized base behind a decentralized technology.
Yeah, that's a good question. You definitely have to invest a lot more time. It's a burden. You think you start your business, but no, it's way more work. Even now, now it's getting a bit better, but yeah, it's a massive burden. But it's fun. It's good.
Sometimes I miss having traditional job where it's 5 o'clock hits and you're just I'm done. 5 o'clock hits and it's all right, the next meeting is coming up now. Now we're meeting people in the US because they're just working out.
Cam, do you have a question?
Yeah, that's a question about before you used to employ those bug bounties and didn't have any previous experience in actually developing smart contracts. How did you feel the first few orders?
So as soon as that $6.5 grand, most of that went to independent researchers. So straight away, had to do it straight away.
I think we spent $400 on Korean barbecue for our family and then $6 grand on security researchers.
Yeah, that's the thing with the researchers that we use are the best in the world on leaderboards, what they do. So you want to hire them. 2 of our guys are full-timers that do that, but it's very, very expensive salary, very niche skills. So a lot of them, they work in universities, they work for foundations, they work for things.
And you bring them to work essentially.
Yes, so they
generally work.
And the unique perspective of that too is from that bug bounty competition level, they might find a really good vulnerability and spend hours finding this critical or high vulnerability, which in the bug bounty space, a spelling mistake might net you 10 grand, depending on the size of the protocol. So they'll spend all this time and all this work on finding this vulnerability, go to issue it on a bug bounty, and someone else is getting to it. And so for all that work, they don't get paid anything. So we can offer a system where, hey, this is this job. You don't get, I guess, as high value if you find vulnerability is super high and issue on the bug bounty, but at the end of the day, you get paid regardless. So they still like to do, security research as, bug bounty researchers, but at the same time, there's ongoing income to do work, and we like them to, we're not saying come work for Hashlock and you can't work for any other, security firm or do this service here or do a bug bounty here. We see that as, you just expanding the coverage.
Essentially, like we're paying like probably more than a full-time salary, but because they're like so niche in what they do, working at us plus online plus in universities, things they earn like some of them earn like more than 500K a year. It's super niche, like
We have one of
Do you
those.
use the drop down and say you're the same?
well no, so now like we've got an internal squad, like internal channel where we have like all the probably at least like 40 researchers who regularly work with us.
Yeah.
And probably, so they're like an internal, like in a very secure chat and communications channel, but then probably about 20 of them at least working on audits for us at the given time. So it's not like new each time, it's the same people.
Yeah.
It's just we don't restrict anyone working for us.
How did you do it the first time? When you wanted to recruit the researchers?
You have to recruit them. Yeah, you have to find them. But now, like, obviously, we've got our internal channel.
So we wouldn't, like, if someone is like new coming on board, we don't chuck them on the job where, they're just on that job up. So generally it's like a team of 4 to 6 people besides the protocol. And if someone's new and sort of getting how they are, we'll chuck them in just on the side and get sort of vibe on how they are finding vulnerabilities. But because everything is on chain too, and we can see their history and these programs, we can see how many high and medium vulnerabilities they've found in the past. And so it's sort of like a pseudo resume of this is what I've done and this is verifiable on chain that I found this stuff.
Same question. Sorry, who was the question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you guys for sharing the story. I wanted to ask you, what is the top 3? You need to have a competitive advantage, right? What would be your top 3, like top 1, 2, 3 importance of elements that you have to consider? How do you make yourself different to the rest of the competition, right? I'm really curious to know, is it networking, the researchers that you have, what is it? What is the sweet spot?
I think the model is a lot of firms will get their traditional cybersecurity team to do blockchain security. We were straight away, let's get the best researchers trained in the world. So our model will mix between full-timers and very expensive researchers. We probably have the highest level of like talent available because our model it stays efficient. So our quality is known as very high in the industry and globally. People see us as like the Australian firm, quite an academic sort of style to our auditing. So quality. But because we're nimble and because we're growing and we're still, 2 and a bit years in, our prices aren't as crazy as some of them. Like some audits, for context, some audits out in the industry, like the top notch, cost like 500 grand, like it's like to a bank or something. And that's because of their name. Now, our quality, because of our model, we try to do a fair bit, but oftentimes not always that much. Sometimes not always that much. Our quality is probably, I would argue, better just because of our model. So price for quality is a big one in Australia based.
And that's sort of the thing, like, if there's a well-known business that's building a Web3 enabled protocol or system, they might head to EY or something and say, hey, you guys do smart contract audits just because that's a name that they're familiar with. But as far as we're aware, they don't really have any idea of how to do anything Web3 in that sense, just because maybe the name audit gets confused. But it might be a hard sell to them to say, we have some of the best security researchers. This guy's name, X Crypto, it's got to be 7, and he hasn't left the bed in 2 years. He's the best person to secure the protocol. It's a hard sell, but he has the verified on-chain evidence of finding these high and medium vulnerabilities. So it's also pairing up and being the enabler to ensure that these people the best security researchers are doing the more sort of traditional businesses that we get into.
We have time for one more question. I know Leo, you had one. And Craig.
I know, awesome story, so inspiring, and I love the way you just went, we're going for it, and this is, you're going in like an expert's already, so hats off, incredible. So probably just another one on the business side of things, you mentioned about your partnerships. Can I just ask, when you think of partners, what kind of relationship do you have, and how do you leverage those partnerships?
Depends, yeah, so heaps. Referral partnerships with development firms is a massive one for revenue. So they build stuff and they need it audited by a third party, has to be external. So dev teams, massive one. And then like this thing, so in the blockchain industry, a lot of foundations, so like the foundational structures, like organizations that, like the Ethereum Foundation, who grants out stuff like that. So partnering with those who are funding projects and we have to audit it. Another big one's VC, like venture capital firms. They fund a lot of blockchain stuff and they really want to make sure it's safe and secure. So, and then we audit startups all the time, so we can send them good ones. So VCs, a lot of referral stuff, a lot of branding, sort of authority stuff.
So is there any financial relationship between them, or you just say we're partners?
Oh, it depends. Depends on, like there are some, but a lot of the time it's like referral agreements with the percent on it. There's some that we like, obviously the fair few.
So we might kick back 10% or so to if the development firms give us work. So that's just come through like that. And that's an incentive on their part. But the main incentive is what at the end of the day, they want to be sure that because their name is sort of tied to the project, that it's that it is secure. So they'll find an incentive to do that.
Great, wow, that's exactly 9 o'clock. So we'll cut it off there, but like I said, Jock and Fletcher will be around for 5 to 10 minutes. If you have any questions, please feel free to come and grab them. But can you all join me in